Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. This episode is part of our Indies Introduced series, where we spotlight debut authors handpicked by booksellers from around the country. In each episode, a bookseller from the Indies Introduced panel will interview the author of a debut title featured in our program.
Hi, my name is Katie Orphan, and I am the owner, operator, everything of Orphan Books in Los Angeles, California. And today I have the honor of interviewing Tesia Tsai, who was born here in Los Angeles to immigrant parents from Taiwan. She currently teaches at Brigham Young University and lives with her husband, 2 cats, and a dog in Utah. When not writing or reading, she enjoys watching Asian dramas, playing video games, and planning her next trip. And today we're talking about her debut novel, Deathly Fates, which is part of our Indies Introduced lineup. And it was one of my very favorite books from all of the titles that we read. There are a lot of things that I love about this book. I am a big fan of what I like to refer to as a fantasy road trip. I'm sure it's technically a hero's journey, but there's something about someone setting out on a quest and meeting up with all sorts of people and situations along the way that just immediately draws me in. And this book specifically is about a young priestess, Su Yin, who has been trained by her father in the art of shepherding the dead back home. And now she is out on her own while her father is ill and dying. And she faces a lot of challenges from the sort of financial care of her father and sister to existing in a country at war. And of course, having dead bodies to transport back and forth. And I really intentionally, in crafting my questions, didn't get very much into the plot because I didn't want to spoil things for anyone. I was like, we'll talk about some of the process and craft because I really want people to pick it up and read it on their own. I don't want them to know too much about what's coming. I just want them to read it. I just want them to find it for themselves. So I'm excited to get into the questions that I have. So I'll start off with my first one. And it is, are there specific myths or legends that contributed to your world building?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, Katie, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I remember meeting you at Winter Institute, so it's great to see a familiar face. And I'm so excited by your excitement. So I'm very pleased to be chatting about my book today. The premise of this novel was heavily inspired by the folklore of Chinese corpse driving. Um, I have had people ask me before, like, is this something you made up? Or is it something that comes from actual like storytelling or history? And it's the latter. So when I first was writing this book or planning this book, um, I was inspired by they're called Chinese hopping vampires or jiangshi in Chinese. But I was inspired by those films that my mom used to watch when I was a kid. They were like these really campy horror comedy films with these kinds of creatures. And I was like, I've never read a book about that, like a novel about that. I think that could be cool to like explore. So I looked into it, I did the research, and I came to find that those movies as silly as they were actually inspired by something a little bit more serious, which was this practice that Taoist priests would do in the olden days of China, where back then a lot of people, when they would grow up and leave the home and find work, they would do so outside of their town or their city. Um, and so if they were to pass away while they were away from their family, it was really expensive for people to have to go and get the bodies and bring them home for burial, right? Um, and so a lot of people would hire these priests who were, I guess, fairly inexpensive. And these priests could go find the bodies, bring them back, and be buried or help them be buried. And the reason this was so important too was because Chinese people believe that spirits um, need to be with their loved ones if they're not buried with like in the family plot or something, then their spirits are cursed to be wandering and lost forever, which is really sad. Which is again why there was this practice of we need to reclaim these corpses, these bodies, and have them properly buried with the family. So I was really fascinated by that part of the folklore, not only, these priests who they were allegedly able to reanimate these bodies, right, to help guide them back home. But just this central theme of being with your family, I thought was really interesting, something I could relate to, and that I value. And so I looked more into that. And just as I was doing the research too, there are lots of um stuff about how like maybe they reanimated these corpses magically, but it's also possible that there were usually two people and they would like carry these sticks between them and like prop the bodies over it, and so as they were traveling the bodies would kind of like hop, right? And so that's where this like belief of hopping vampires came from. There was another thing I came across where they were like some smugglers would use this to their advantage because in Chinese culture it's very unlucky to look at a dead body, and so for people who are smuggling things between borders, they could pretend that they were carrying a dead body or maybe even actually be carrying a dead body, but also be hiding some contraband. And so I thought that was really well, fun, interesting, which is why I kind of incorporated that a little into my character. um, but yeah, those I would say those are the main things that I was thinking of in terms of like mythology, folklore. When it came to writing this story, I really kind of had to start from scratch because I'd never read anything like it before. But I think that made it really fun, open to interpretation.
I I mean, I agree. I think it's really fun. Um, how long did it take you to go from that sort of initial idea to now with your book about to come out? When people listen to this, it will be out.
Yeah. Um, it took a long time. I think I started thinking about this story in 2019. I distinctly remember like I was hanging out with another writer friend, and just as she was working on her book, I was doing research and just taking notes and just kind of deciding like what are the different pieces available to me and how would I like to put them together. Um, and then it wasn't until 2020 when the pandemic hit that I was like, you know what? I'm stuck at home because I teach part-time too, and I'm not required now to go see my students in person in March 2020. And so I was like, I might as well like use this time of isolation to do something creative, right? And to work on this thing that I've been thinking about for a long time. Um, and so that's what I did. I started this book. I just started writing it and it flowed really quickly. It was one of the few times when I wrote something that it just clicked, and I finished it in like 3 months, which is really nice. I wish I could do that right now again with my
Oh,
book. But yeah, I finished it, and then I had a friend who had done Pitch Wars before, and she was like, "Hey, I really think you should submit this to Pitch Wars." And I had tried to, like, I had applied for Pitch Wars the previous year or so with a different project. And I hadn't gone picked. So I was kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be disappointed again. Um, but she was like, I really think you should, because this is a really good story. And honestly, I felt really confident in the story. I was like, this is a story that feels so true to me and feels unique. And like I've worked hard enough that my craft has improved too. So I did apply for Pitch Wars and I got in, which was amazing. And so I spent the next couple of months working with my mentors on revising that. And in the winter of 2021, I signed with my agent, who I did meet through Pitch Wars, and she's been awesome. Um, and then we went on sub, or I revised a little bit more, and then we went on sub. We were on sub for like 2 years.
Oh.
And I kept waiting for my agent to be like, Tessia, I think it's time we shelf this project and start something else. Because we're getting a lot of passes. And like it's nice that we're getting responses and stuff, but no bites yet. And so it was really disheartening for me to hear because again, I felt really connected to the book. I felt like it had so much potential to connect to readers. Um, but she never said that. And so I didn't either. I never said, maybe let's try something else. And so we just kept submitting to editors. We would take breaks. And the nice thing was a lot of these editors, even if they did pass on it, they would offer feedback. They would be like, I wasn't really connecting with the voice, or I wish there was more horror, or I wish there was more romance, or whatever. And so eventually, Laura, my agent, and I just kind of talked about like feedback that we were noticing repeating over and over again. And we had a discussion on like, what do you want to do in terms of revising it to make it more marketable? And what are you not willing to change? So we had a couple of discussions about that. I ended up changing it from third person to first person. I ended up adding a romantic thread to the story. Originally, it was more hinted at and not so much manifested, but there was an editor who really wanted to see that. And I was like, I built the chemistry for a reason, so I might as well like make something out of it. So that's what I did. I eventually got a revise and resubmit request from my current editor, and I spent a couple months working on it. And then in 2024, yeah, 2024, winter of 2024, she offered to buy it in a two-book deal. And so that was really awesome. And since then, it's been just editing, revising, getting ready to promote and sell this book, which comes out in just a few weeks. So I'm very, very excited about it. And I feel very lucky and very blessed to be surrounded by such wonderful, supportive people.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you and your agent uh, stuck with it as someone who has enjoyed the end result so much. It's
Yeah.
funny because you have essentially answered already one of my questions, which was, were there any big changes from how you originally conceived Deathly Fates to what we'll be reading? And it sounds like, yes, the point of view change, the addition of more of a romantic storyline. It sounds like that was happening too, kind of as romantasy was blowing up. Like,
Mhm.
do did you notice at that time that people were starting to talk a lot about romantasy when you were getting that feedback?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understood why my editor wanted that. Not just because she likes romance, but also because it sells, right? And I mean, I wasn't opposed to it because I love reading romance. I wasn't confident in writing it, but I was really in love with reading it. And so for her to like suggest that, it was kind of the push I needed to be like, I can do this. I can try this. So yeah, that was definitely a huge thing. I will say though, the book is not as heavily romantic as people might assume. So that's something I should like warn readers. It's definitely slow burn. And it follows more the pattern of like Asian dramas where it's a lot of yearning and like building up to it and then the payout is like a cute little kiss or whatever. So, or a hand holding or whatever, right?
Hmm.
So if my readers are expecting, like this really passionate love affair throughout, they will be disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, on a like bookseller hand selling note, I think that actually has some good advantages because I certainly encounter readers who are moving into YA who, you know, are okay with romance, but really like want an adventure and are kind of in that adolescent transitional phase. So I'm like, I actually am like, I already have some kids in mind where I'm like, oh, this will be great. Like they will enjoy that there is a romantic element, but they will also be happy that that's not the primary focus of the novel. So I think yeah, I think it's a totally valid warning considering the state of romanticy, but I also think for this age group and uh, for the variety of tastes and interests out there, that there's a place for books like this. Like, yeah, I love a slow burn. I love two people slowly falling in love as they journey through the countryside to right some ancient or recent wrongs and fall in
Mix it
love
up.
along the way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. What was the most surprising part of this process for you?
The most surprising part. I think like I mentioned before, I guess one of the most surprising parts was how easily this book came to me. Um, I really channeled a lot of my own experience as like the eldest daughter in a family who it's not that my parents rely on me heavily, but they have always looked to me as the child who needs to be a good example to her siblings, right? And the child who needs to be responsible and capable. I made sure I got through college without ever asking for a cent from my parents, right? Because I didn't want to burden them. And I made sure that I did well in school and like in my personal life and stuff like that, which honestly, it's a miracle my parents supported me writing books. I poured a lot of that into my character, into my main character scene. So I think that's why it flowed so well. I think since then, when I'm like working on any other project, I'm trying to really understand a character that might be very different from me, and that takes more work and more effort. Um, but with Sing, it was very much just like, yeah, you're just the better version of me. So So let's just work from that. So I think that really helped a lot because characters for me drive the plot of a story. And so because I knew her so well, it was easy for me to fill in the rest of it. So that was an unexpected part of working on this book. I would say another unexpected part, and this is me just like being self-deprecating, but I didn't expect so many readers to connect with this book. Like I wanted them to, right? And I hope they would. But some of the responses I've been getting, I don't take them for granted. It's been really pleasant, delightful, and surprising to hear how it's not just fantastical in this book that has resonated with them, but it's the characters, it's what she cares about, it's the themes. And that's exactly what I was hoping for when I wrote this book, but I wasn't sure if my readers would get that. And so I'm really glad that they had.
Yeah, yeah. I I know it's been fun to see um, all of the blurbs that you've been getting and the lists that you've been on and the like early reader reviews. Um, it's great to see how much other people are responding to and enjoying your book. Um, yeah, my final question for you is do you have other stories that you want to tell in this world that you've created.
Like in the Deathly Fates world specifically.
Definitely, yeah, like not necessarily a sequel. I mean, I'm not opposed. Uh, but but like, yeah, the sort of magical system you've created, all of that. Yeah, do you have other stories you want to tell in that setting?
In this particular world, with these characters and this magic I've built, I don't have anything planned for it right now. I've heard some people say they wouldn't mind a sequel, and I'm like, I don't have really an idea for a sequel, but if, if people are curious enough, I'm sure I can come up with something. As far as the world is concerned, though, I am pretty steeped right now in this like alternative ancient Chinese fantastical world. So even if I'm not going to be writing, or if I'm not, even if I'm not planning to write another corpse driving book right now, I'm definitely working on stuff that is set in a similar setting of, like the vibes of a Chinese drama with the clothing, the environment, the magic, and the whimsy. I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about my current project right now, but it is very much that. It's like the more fairy tale side of Deathly Fates. So I hope people will enjoy that. It's a lot of fun for me to be in that kind of world and to like really explore it, especially since when I was a kid, I didn't.
Yeah.
It was a part of my culture that I didn't really feel comfortable with when I was younger. But now that I'm older and wiser, I really enjoyed like familiarizing myself with it and letting my creativity run from that.
That's great. Well, I am glad that you had a two book deal. So I'm glad that there is
Yeah.
another one in the works and that we will get to read it.
Yeah.
Uh, but first, I'm excited for everyone to read Deathly Fates, pick it up, or if they're a bookseller, they should make sure they're stocking it and selling it to lots of people who come through their doors. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sitting with me and answering my questions. It was really fun to get to hear so much more about how Deathly Fates came to be. So I really appreciate your time today, Tesia.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate your time. I love just chatting about books in general. So thank you, Katie, for reading the book, for loving it and knowing it enough to do this interview.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Well, uh, thank you again. Have a wonderful book launch and great success with the release of this.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA site at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!